I'm joined by Andrew Porter. He's Director at Council House, a former Labor advisor, and the former New South Wales Liberal Party leader, Kerry Chikarovski. Kerry, this debate last night, a fiery one, robust to say the least, a bit messy at times. What was your takeout from it?
Well, I think you did a much better job moderating your debate, Kieran. I think that's the first thing I think I need to say. I think, look, it was clearly fiery, and I think because there weren't any audience, there was no one in the room who they could actually feed off. The two parties kind of fed off each other. I'm not sure that the journalists got much of a look in trying to even ask their questions. So I think most of the fieriness came from when they were asking each other questions, and I think that was because they were quite pointed. Look, my overall impression of it was, I think, listening to the commentary from all sides today, including from the two participants, I think everyone's a little bit sheepish about how fiery it got. I suspect that the third and final debate might be a little bit more restrained.
Yeah, well, Andrew Porter, I've got to say I felt for Sarah, the moderator, because the format really was a tricky one to try and navigate, I think, the way that it was all put together. But I mean, that to one side. What's your read on the politics of it? Does it shift the dial one way or the other?
Probably not massively, Kieran. But the fact is, both were passionate. I'm wearing a yellow and black, a Richmond tie. I think that Albo's very passionate performance was not unlike Dustin Martin returning to the Coliseum, the MCG, on Saturday, and doing well. And I think we actually saw a lot from Anthony in terms of really standing up for what he's passionate about. I think it's something that we need to see more of. And I think the Prime Minister was quite passionate as well. Will it have shifted the dial at all? I'm not sure, but we're going to see an intensification of the contest as we really sort of hit that last fortnight anyway. And that's really, I think, one of the first instances of that. As Kerry touched on, though, obviously a better debate format on Sky than on Fairfax on 9, etc. But we're going to continue to see this get more intense and more personal as we draw closer to May 21.
Another Richmond Tigers tragic joining me after the top of the hour. Dan Tehan, the Trade Minister, will be my guest then. But I wonder if he can weave Dusty Martin into that as well, that conversation. But Kerry Chikarovski, to you on the polling, you look at these numbers at the moment.
Can I just say about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, Kieran, can I just say about that? Not everybody in New South Wales is going to appreciate that reference, or particularly us rugby girls.
Yeah, exactly. No, well done. Now let's talk about the polling, because it is less than 2 weeks now from polling day, the election day. That is. Kerry Chikarovski. In fact, pre-polls begun today. Andrew Hurst, the director of the Liberal Party, as my colleague Andrew Clennell revealed yesterday on Sky News, that Hurst had encouraged MPs to say to people, "Don't pre-poll, vote late." Looks like they need all the time they can get.
Well, I think the reality is that pre-poll has become far more common than it used to be. I mean, if you would remember that when it was first introduced, it was for people who were either going to be working on the day or they were away from their electorates. So yeah, people nowadays, though, don't really seem to give much of an excuse because they just want to get it out of the way. But you're right. In terms of the polling, I think the difficulty for the Liberal Party, the coalition in particular, is that at this stage you'd like to think that the polling was tightening, but apparently it's not. You know, I know it's within the margin of error, the 1% up and down, but the coalition must be feeling a little bit nervous at this stage. But having said that, we've seen that this Prime Minister in particular, he likes to campaign. He's out there very strongly, as are all his team. Talking to people, I have not ever heard of as much door knocking that's going on in all seats, coalition seats, than I've heard of this year. People are out in droves, and people have they've co-opted their friends, their neighbours, their relations, and people are door knocking very strongly. So I wouldn't be giving up at this stage. I'm still thinking that it's still too tight to call, but as you say, they'll need every vote to get over the line by the election day.
Andrew Porter, it looks like despite the opposition leader's stumbles, it hasn't hurt the Labor primary, and the other key moment of last week, obviously more important when it comes to people's lives, is that rate rise feeding into the campaign, Andrew.
Well, that's right, Kieran. And I suppose one of the great unknowns of the past week, and indeed then the fortnight or so to come, is whether or not that benefits the government as the incumbent and a party that consistently asserts, usually without particularly persuasive evidence, of course, that it's a better manager of the economy. Debt has massively increased under the coalition government, and we've seen really quite a few lost years during their time when it comes to economic reform. So the question is, how does that play out? I think Labor is consistently talking about cost of living. The coalition is too. I think what Kerry touched on, though, is absolutely right, which is that it, notwithstanding what the polls say in terms of a national two-party preferred, it's really seat by street and seat by seat. People aren't taking anything for granted, I suspect, on either side. It's going to be a really close contest. I mean, it can be 53-47, it could be 54-46. I don't think anyone's treating it like that. I think everyone is very much of the view, certainly on the Labor side, that it will be a close contest come May 21.
Andrew, Kerry, appreciate it. Talk to you soon.